Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Never before in the history of sports podcasts have two men brought you opinion and analysis like these two. They speak for a city that's desperate for wins and titles, not whining and travesty. You might not agree with what they have to say, but you'll defend their right to say it. Sports fans across the world, from Chicago, Illinois, this is the Mac and Reed Show.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into another edition of the Mac and Reed Show right here on the Barroom Network. Remember to follow us on social media. Follow me at the 311 Mac. Follow Ross at Ross Reed. And, of course, follow at Barroom Network for all your Breaking Bears news and Bears coverage as we are previewing the season. Our show, of course, and all the great programming here at the network. If you're watching along on YouTube, of course, feel free to chime in and comment as we, as I said, dive into a preview not only of the Titans game upcoming, the kickoff game for the Bears at Soldier Field this coming Sunday, but the rest of this season as we look at it all. Definitely throughout this episode, we'll be talking about Caleb Williams and company, individual predictions, record predictions, all that good stuff, things to watch out for, defensive takeaways, anything like that. And of course, later in the show as well, we'll talk about the NFL. That season kicks off tonight with the Chiefs and the Ravens. If you're watching live with us now, as we'll lead you into kickoff of that game. Surprises along the way. Remember, if you've missed any of the previous Mac and Reed episodes, they are up on YouTube, of course, and the audio-only versions are on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your audio content and audio-visual content. Remember to like, subscribe, tell a friend or two. He's back from his little getaway to Arizona, looking tanner than ever. Mr. Ross Reed, how we doing there?
I'm good. I had it on mute for a second while my dogs were barking. I look like I look like I sell pure Colombian Coke now. Nice bronze skin. Yes, summer is it's not officially over. It doesn't end until the 22nd, but as we all know, this is the unofficial end of summer. So
once Labor Day passes, everybody seems to say so long. Even though we'll get some nicer days, but the heat is on the show here at Mac and Reed, and we'll dive into it right now. So to begin, we'll talk about Hard Knocks, of course, too, that concluded with their coverage of the Bears, which I think did a pretty nice job of the coverage of the team. But, as far as headlines going into Sunday and beyond, we know we've talked about them ad nauseum as far as Caleb Williams. It starts and ends with him, I feel like, and how number 18 is going to be the hopefully savior from this quarterback hell that the Bears have been in to recent memory. When you think of even just the last few quarterbacks, when you're reaching for Justin Fields or Mitch Trubisky and just not quite getting you to the promised land or even past the first round of the playoffs, you can only rely on a defense of the rest of the team so much before you have a true, lottery pick and just a gem of a quarterback, a Heisman winner and a franchise dynasty quarterback, you hope, in Caleb Williams. And we've seen it in the preseason, which if you've seen our show before, we've talked about how Caleb has really shown those flashes, really to have that ability to, throw the deep ball, throw on the move, to improvise, to use his legs. And that's just, obviously in a small snippet of the preseason, but it's important to see early on. And then with the offense as a whole, I can't wait for this game against the Titans and a defense that, Mike Vrabel's no slouch, a defensive-minded team. Offense, the Bears' defense should really feast on Will Levis and his inability to play the starting quarterback role, but we'll see how that Titans offense shakes out. A lot of moving parts, a lot of movement in this offseason for them. But back to the Bears offense, we'll finally see this trio out there of receivers, even though I feel like a big critique is Shane Waldron not having a lot of three receivers sets, but still you'll see combinations of Odunze and Keenan Allen and DJ Moore out there, and then Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett, not to mention DeAndre Swift. And we know Khalil Herbert is a beast in the goal line and just a beast of a running back as a workhorse as he is. And you really hope that we'll see some consistency along the offensive line from Sunday on as well. We saw in the preseason, I think, the pocket was pretty solid for Caleb Williams. A lot of times pass protection was all right. Running lanes were pretty good as well. We saw that this team ran the ball well last year. So I would continue to obviously not shy away from that and set Caleb Williams up for success doing that. If I'm Shane Waldron, I'm curious to see, on the note of Shane Waldron, how his offensive play calling really differs and really helps elevate this Bears offense to greater heights in this season. And so, Ross, I talked a lot about it as far as Sunday and beyond. What are you looking forward to the most, or anything I missed on as far as the Bears and the offense is concerned?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're going to see from Shane Waldron, I mean, this is a veteran offensive coordinator. This is a guy that's come from his days in the Rams, and obviously we know him in Seattle. He brings kind of that Sean McVay style offense with him. He was a guy that's going to work in. You hit it on the head. I think the Bears are going to play a lot of 12 early on. They're going to get a lot of 1 and 2 tight end sets. That's why they signed a guy like Gerald Everett to be out there. I tweeted out an article that my buddy Quentin that wrote the other day, that rookie quarterbacks usually tend to rely on their tight ends early in the season because that's what they feel the most comfortable with, and they start to work outside to their wide receivers as the season goes along. So I do expect a heavy dose, especially this Sunday, of a lot of play action, a lot of running the football, a lot of getting Caleb Williams out on the edge, but also getting quick targets to Cole Kmet and Gerald Everett and allowing those guys to move the chains for them. It doesn't mean that they're still not going to take their shots with DJ Moore and Keenan Allen and even Roman Dunze, but I think they want to get Caleb Williams comfortable early on, especially early on in the football game. He's going to have a lot of butterflies in his stomach. This is his first real NFL action. Preseason counts, but doesn't really count. This is his first time seeing Soldier Field, filled completely to the brim. There's going to be flyovers. There's going to be flags. There's going to be celebrities there. Steve McMichael, is getting, rewarded there for his Hall of Fame ring and stuff like that. So there's going to be a lot of energy in the building. You have to get Caleb comfortable. And I think how you do that, 3-step drops, getting the ball out of his hands quickly, allowing these tight ends, these backs, and even these receivers make plays. I think that's what Shane Waldron is going to do. Also relying a lot on the running game. You have to be able to, they're going up against a guy like Justin Simmons, who is an all-pro defensive tackle. He commands a double team on the interior part of the offensive line. And, we feel good about Tevin Jenkins, but you might not feel great about Nate Davis and even, starting center. So that's also an opportunity for, Caleb to get on the edge a lot more and get the ball out of his hands a little bit quicker. I'm not crazy about the Titans linebackers. I think that those guys, that's where their weakness is on their football team. They can get exposed there. They got guys like Harold Landry is a veteran starter. But he's bounced around the league. Ernest Jones is their inside linebacker. Kenneth Murray is their other guy. And then the Arden Key is going to be coming off the edge through there. That's where you can exploit this defense. And again, a lot of crossing routes, a lot of heavy Cole Kmet. I tweeted out the other day, if you are betting, I feel good about one of those guys getting an anytime touchdown, Kmet or Gerald Everett. But I think, it's going to be a lot of just balance early on and getting him comfortable. And then the third and fourth quarter, we've seen Caleb come alive even this preseason. In the magic start to hit, that's when you can take your shots against this football team. So I expect a little bit. It's almost like a boxing match. This is week one for everybody, not even just Bears Titans, just across the league. A lot of feeling out first couple rounds, just kind of seeing what's going on, a couple jabs in there, and then you start to throw your heavyweight punches later on. Remember, the Titans also have a brand new head coach. Mike Vrabel's gone. So Brian Callahan is their new head coach. He is the former offensive coordinator from the Cincinnati Bengals. It's also an opportunity as a veteran staff that the Bears have to kind of poke and see what this brand new, coaching staff has with Tennessee and see what spots they can pick.
Thank you for pointing that out, forgetting that Mike Vrabel is now gone. And that also points to all the turnover that has gone with this Tennessee Titans. Really a completely different look for this offense, I feel like, certainly with, Will Levis and then DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, and then getting Tyler Boyd in the offseason. They're hoping to get something out of Okonkwo at tight end. But, you talked about that defense and now Jeffrey Simmons, we talked about weeks ago, and he couldn't wait to play Caleb Williams and talk about his fingernail paint. And we'll see that Caleb Williams will just hopefully let himself ball out. But it goes without saying that I feel like it's going to be pretty ugly to start, and there certainly will be nerves like we saw in the most preseason action that Caleb had against the Bengals in that first half. He looked like he was sailing some throws, and he looked like he was rushing some decisions, not making really costly mistakes like fumbling or throwing an interception, but he wanted some of those plays back. So that goes back to, I think, the coaching of this Bears team and the offense. Run the ball, have a good dosage of that, build some confidence on some quick, easy throws with Caleb Williams, and then sort of bait them in to get deep balls later in the game. It's going to be exciting to see the speed of this unit, though. We talk about the guys who made the 53-man roster. Curious to see how Tyler Scott's used and Velus Jones, the guys who aren't, in that immediate core of tight ends and wide receivers and skill position players that we mentioned. But I'm curious to see, DeAndre Swift, who the Bears paid a pretty good chunk of money to see how he performs, how he, had a decent season last year. He's been on 2 different teams in 2 years, and now he lands with the Bears. Hopefully goes ahead and benefits from having Caleb Williams, hopefully a future all-star quarterback there, and a really competent offensive line. For the Bears, it's been all about, what you're seeing around the league, and Detroit's a great example of it, is more committee type of running backs too, where you figure you have 2 different styles of runners, and Jahmyr Gibbs can do it all, frankly, but David Montgomery is just one of those guys who I feel like has led the NFL in broken tackles for many years now. But with the Bears, they want to set the tone early. It's going to be a nice day, one of those early games on the lakefront where it's really nice. You talked about that noise and that atmosphere. It's going to be as crazy as you could get if you're Caleb Williams, but that's also coming from USC, which obviously has a storied program. He's used to the spotlight before, so I feel like he'll just really thrive on that.
Yeah, and Oklahoma, right? He spent a couple of years in Oklahoma
right?
too.
Yeah.
So he's used to 85-degree weather and also 110,000 people in the stands.
It's later on when it's 10 degrees and 30,000 people in the stands where it'll be a little more dicey and he's got to play with snow, but that's tough for any quarterbacks, that's for sure. And as far as the defense goes, we talked about the coordinator turnover of the Bears and Ryan Poles trying to add to this defense, and then re-signing Jalen Johnson obviously helps bolster it. And then, not really the weakness is edge rusher. You got Montez Sweat. That's not a concern. That he'll bring it. But as far as the Bears are concerned, they're really going to have to rely heavily on, I think, that pass rush. I mean, Will Levis, again, not an all-world guy, so it's a kind of a good warm-up for this pass rush. Guys like Austin Booker and fringe guys who want to make an impact. If you're trying to do something, if you're Matt Eberflus, really create some intricate blitz packages and bring, you saw Kyler Gordon in the preseason and the linebacker play has been pretty spot on. The defense, as you saw in the preseason, was just overwhelmingly good at all levels in the first and second and third string. But to see that first string unit, you want to see the takeaways and you want to see them getting sacks. You want to see that Bears style of football that we covet as Chicago Bears fans. If you were to put a number on it and if you don't want to, that's fine, Ross. But if you think about the prediction for their performance against Will Levis and company Sunday, what are you thinking?
That's where I feel the most confident about. The Bears have one of the premier secondaries in football right now. I also feel really good about where Matt Eberflus is right now and his comfortability coming into now his third year as head coach, veteran defensive coordinator, Eric Washington, we know now is a new defensive coordinator. Those guys were super aggressive flying off the ball all preseason long. They were aggressive even in training camp. Will Levis is a guy that has a 9.9 career sack percentage rate. The baseline for a quarterback, for a good quarterback, is normally around 4%. So Will Levis does like to hold on to the football. He likes to take a lot of sacks. I think the Bears are going to be able to capitalize on that. I think you're going to see a guy like Montez Sweat have a big game. But either of the guys out there, you're going to be able to see Austin Booker, the rookie that they drafted, get some snaps in their NASCAR package. Also, Kyler Gordon coming off the edge. Will Levis is going to be able to give the Bears a lot of opportunities to put him on the ground, and hopefully that leads to some turnovers as well.
Yeah, that's the hope, right? It's going to be loud, and we know that Bears fans have been waiting a long time for this, as the players have been, and it's a new day. You saw today, if your eye was on social media, how the Bears social media team has done very well at it. Created a new hype video that was kind of like a jungle theme to it. It was cool seeing all the players getting ready to go. And obviously special teams plays a part into it. It's funny seeing that video. Tory Taylor was like thrown in at the end. But I respect it, the Aussie, and we will see him being a factor as well. The guy who you spend a 4th round pick on, if you're Ryan Poles, as a punter, is a pretty big weapon when you're trying to pin teams deep, and especially Will Levis and company. You might see a safety, God forbid, if you're pinning them by the 1 or inside the 5, as we know Tory Taylor can. We know Cairo Santos is one of the most consistent kickers out there too, and the NFL is a really good weapon. As far as the score goes, we'll give predictions as we end the show, but it feels like obviously it might be a struggle for both young quarterbacks. Will Levis, I believe, in his 2nd year, and yes. Caleb Williams obviously making his first pro start. So there's going to be that first half ugliness. You might see single digits still. Who knows? In this first effort where these two teams are really trying to feel things out. And there might be a couple big plays, but we'll see about the scoring. We know that the Bears have been struggling in years past to put up big time numbers, 30 plus and such is a rarity. But, as far as that, we've talked about the Titans at length, into the season. I'm curious, Ross, it's a quick jump, I know, but I feel like this, as we look at the schedule, the Texans is that one primetime game in week 2. Then you go and after that, you're traveling to the Colts. This is all following the Titans. And then the Rams and the Panthers and Jaguars in London. It's not the toughest schedule in the world in the first half, going into your bye week. We know that what's interesting is that pretty much all of the NFC North play is in that second half. And we know that the Lions are going to be tough, and obviously Green Bay. And then you got to play the 49ers in San Francisco. You got to host the Seahawks, who I think are going to take a step forward in their division this year. So really the last, 8 games could be very tough for them. But as a whole, I think that it's very winnable if you take advantage of these first several games. It looks like they'll take a step forward. Having said that, I think the Bears go something like 10-7 if they, if I'm to put a number on it. And individually, I think Caleb Williams, I feel like everybody's talking about him being that first Bears passer to go over 4,000 yards. And that would put him in the, if you look at like last year, that's the top 10 quarterbacks of the league. I think he gets right about there. I don't think he surpasses it. I also think DJ Moore goes over 1,000 yards. I think obviously he's just one of the most skilled receivers out there and such a great weapon. And I think that he'll really try to spread it around a bit. These like DeAndre Swift and Khalil Herbert kind of split maybe like 1,200 rushing yards, something like that. But the defense, I'm curious to see what kind of stats they put up. As far as the record goes and Caleb Williams' performance, what do you think you could predict there, Ross?
Same. I got them right about 10-7 as well. This was a 7-win football team last year. They upgraded at QB1. They upgraded at wide receiver 2. Yep. They upgraded at wide receiver 3, right? They upgraded at tight end 2. They upgraded at running back 1. So they should be able to put more points on the board this year, assuming that they stay healthy. I think to me, as I look at the schedule, the meat and potatoes of where you should be able to stack wins is kind of right after that Houston game, right into that that first Green Bay game. Because you go into a stretch where you've got in Indy, at home against the Rams, their defense is a mess right now. Carolina at home, you've got Jacksonville in London, you've got Washington, in Arizona, New England's a mess. That to me is where you need to like stack a bunch of wins in there, and I think that's where they're going to be able to hit their stride as an offense and as a defense as well. So hopefully they'll be able to do that. And then we look into the back end of the season. You got a lot of tough divisional games, but the Bears always play the Lions really tough, right? Those are the Lions 2 times. Minnesota, we don't know what the heck that team's going to look like this year. And, Green Bay is kind of the big elephant in the room, as they always have been. The Bears have got to start beating Green Bay in some capacity. Even if they get a split from them this year, that'll be a major win. But I got them at 10-7. They should be fighting for a wild card spot. Anything less than that, I think we have to have an unfortunate conversation about the head coach. And of course, this is all assuming that they stay healthy, because they are a much better team on paper this year. I like their defense. I love their special teams. Obviously, we feel good about where the quarterback is. We feel good. He's walking into the best position ever as a rookie quarterback, as a number 1 overall pick. And he certainly has the talent. He certainly has the moxie and the charisma and the confidence. And it's just all about putting it on paper. So, we'll see how it goes. The Bears are the fun, sexy team of the year. And they feel like the team that could be 1 year away from really being one of these consistent perennial Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah, it looks that way across the league. You look at the predictions from everybody talking about how Caleb Williams, this is very, really highly thought after preview of Caleb Williams, or I should say debut of Caleb Williams, coming out Sunday against the Titans. And he's the shoo-in for Rookie of the Year as far as the NFL is concerned. And the Bears as a team look like they're a fringe playoff team. So that'll be curious to see if this record kind of shakes out. What's the over-under on Velus Jones muffed kicks, Ross?
Ooh, that's the thing. That's the thing I'm scared about. I'm not surprised that he made the football team, especially after the Ian Wheeler injury. Sure. But my thoughts on Velus Jones is, I think he is a very talented football player, but I think when you have a guy that only gets about 6 to 8 touches a game, and I feel nervous about all of those 6 to 8 touches, that's where I get concerned about where he fits long-term on this team. He's going to get a shot as early as Sunday. He's listed right now number 1 on the depth charts as kickoff returner, as he should be. I think he's earned that spot right now, but I also think he's going to have a very short hook. I also think, a big factor going into week 1, none of these guys really play preseason, the starters, and so their conditioning is not going to quite be there. It's not going to be as hot in Chicago this Sunday. It's going to be about 70 degrees at game time. But when you're a guy like DeAndre Swift and even Khalil Herbert, we haven't played at all during the preseason. Your wind is not quite where it needs to be at, and so they're not going to be able to shoulder the load the entire time. So I think even guys like Roschon Johnson and Velus Jones got a lot of burn in preseason. He's literally one of the most game ready guys on the roster, and so I could see him being put out there for 3 to 5 snaps on offense on Sunday. But if he screws up in any capacity, you got to bench him, and if you bench him, I don't know how you put him back on the football field for the rest of the season. He just has become unreliable. So hopefully, fingers crossed, he looks good. He looks poised. He's ready. I mean, the guy is he's not a seasoned vet in terms of being in the league that long, but also remember he was an older rookie coming in the league. So the guy is, I don't know how old he is now, probably off the top of my head, 28 years old. That's he's 27, excuse me. So that's old enough to where you need to start performing. This is it. Put up or shut up time for him.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, I think the last Hard Knocks episode or last episode on Hard Knocks, he was talking about how Percy Harvin is one of his favorite players, and Bears are trying to use him a la Percy Harvin almost to an extent. And at 27, and this is his 3rd year, it'll be interesting to see what he makes of it, and if he could take back a kickoff, I mean, it'll obviously do wonders for his future as a Bear. But I'm also curious. Having made that transition to running back, the running back room loves him, and he played a lot into that Kansas City game, which speaks volumes to his character. He just said, "Hey, I'm going to embrace this role. I'm a utility knife and like Cordarrelle Patterson now, if you will, and go ahead and go get some serious reps and get your hand on the ball as often as you can." So, with Velus Jones and all these weapons, it really sets up this Bears team for some success. I think, players, individuals we didn't talk about as far as, Jalen Johnson, we really expect him to continue to be a shutdown corner. I expect him to be really great all pro level. And then Kyler Gordon taking that step up with Jaquan Brisker and company, Tyrick Stevenson, maybe a Pro Bowl type of year for him would be great to see. I am curious too, like with Montez Sweat on a limited season with the Bears, if he gets a full season, I think your minimal expectations is to get double-digit sacks from a guy like this. And then you're curious to see who will be stepping up in the interior. And secondly, who would you think would be a guy who would be second to him as far as maybe sacks and tackles for losses and just a big impact there, Russ?
That's a good question. I think a guy like DeMarcus Walker, who was a very solid signing last year for the Bears. He's a guy that came from Tennessee Titans, speaking of the Titans. I think he's a guy that's going to be able to really set the edge in the run game and get a lot of tackles for loss. He's not really a big sack guy. I think your sack guy this year is going to come from Austin Booker. Remember the rookie, from Kansas, he set the world on fire in preseason. So, he's a very fast, lean guy. He's 6'4", he's 245 pounds. He is literally built to just pin his ears back and go out there and attack the quarterback. And you put him out there on the football field with Montez Sweat on the opposite side, I really think that he's got such a high motor. I really think that he's going to be able to rack up a decent amount of sacks in his rookie season. I'd set the bar, the over-under for him at like 8 to 10 sacks this year. I really think he can get it just because he does have that pure pass rush ability.
Yeah, I love that. Austin Booker with a lot of length and was the last draft pick of this last draft and played a lot of good snaps in the preseason. High hopes. And then he's got that benefit of learning from a guy like Montez Sweat, which is cool to see as well. We saw the end of Hard Knocks, and I think that they really did a great job. I enjoyed that, final episode. Obviously, that's the one where historically on Hard Knocks, as the preseason winds down and wraps up, they focus on all these roster cuts and the guys who really didn't make the team so much as the stars who will be, propelling the team forward. So, I am surprised though they didn't really focus on a lot, but there's only so much you can focus on a football team like that. But they didn't do anything on Marcedes Lewis, who I feel like, has been in the league for like 19 years, a vet going into camp, but maybe just wasn't interesting on camera. Who knows? The running backs, no offensive line focus, besides Velus Jones as far as running backs are concerned, but there was a good amount of focus on Caleb Williams, which we saw. They love DJ Moore and his family and, him getting his big contract extension. There was a big focus on the quarterbacks, of course. There's a lot on Tyson Bagent's dad, and which was great. Jalen Johnson, the fringe guys like that. It was cool to see Rome Odunze and Jalen Johnson going and doing their option routes and just seeing like what a great young wide receiver Odunze is and can challenge an all pro corner like that in Jalen Johnson. But the cuts are really what I mean. We've talked about everybody who's going to be so important to getting the Bears to in the playoffs and possibly a Super Bowl. But you see the guys who make them better are those who are making the practice squad, and a lot of those guys who got cut and in the 24 hours may have gotten re-signed. Adrian Colbert was probably the biggest one who was a safety who, got cut by the Bears and who just had, Ryan Poles in tears basically, but just because of his spirit and what he had overcome and his bike accident, almost losing his life to, by getting hit by a car, and then going from you'll never be able to play football again to being able to play football again at the highest level is just something insane. And his mentality and him just like grooving along with his little mushroom necklace and riding his bike to Halas Hall was just very cool to see. And the way he took his cut just speaks to his character. So hopefully he can get his shot elsewhere. And, you saw Austin Reed and other guys like that, just sincerely grateful for the opportunity. You saw Brett Rippon got signed immediately from Minnesota, said, if I'm not if it's between the practice squad and making the 53-man roster, I'm obviously going to take this. But that stuff makes for good content for the show. It's sad to see not to make the roster, but it's also just such a huge part of the show, as we know. But it just came down to that last 3 minutes was cool, where they, the song was End of Beginning, and they just had that montage of all the practice going on. But that last shot of Caleb Williams just kind of said it all. It's just a new day for the Bears, and this is it. The Bears got the quarterback; they got to deliver now. Also, of course, Jonathan Owens and Simone Biles' dogs were fun to watch. What'd you think of Hard Knocks? Did it do the trick for you, Ross?
It did the trick. I've always been very cynical about Hard Knocks because, fact of the matter is,
cookie cutter now. Yeah,
it is. And when it's not your team, it's like you don't really care as much, right? You don't care about the punter and the backup running back who tore his ACL and stuff like that. But because it's our team, we cared a lot more. And it was literally the hype video that we needed to go into this season. So, and you hope that it has the same kind of effect that it had like on the Lions, who were featured on Hard Knocks a couple of years ago as a perennial loser. And then it catapulted them obviously to being a good team and to a playoff berth. So it was really cool to see, I think, Ryan Poles get that big moment, because he is literally, emerging as one of the premier young GMs of the league right now. And to see him be such a tactician as a general manager and be very calculated and be very cold in his decisions and being all about football, but he still had just the most human, moments on the show out of anybody, I thought was really, really cool. I thought it was also cool to see Matt Eberflus and see his family and see that just gorgeous house that he has. I want that house so bad. And nice. See that moment. Yeah, absolutely.
He's got his own beehive.
Oh my God. Yes. I think that was the best parts of the season for me, was to see the leadership of the Chicago Bears and see kind of the personal side behind them. The Caleb Williams stuff. Caleb Williams is a superstar. Caleb Williams is, I watched the USC retirement video today, and they got like John Legend congratulating him. And the kid's a superstar. So he's going to be a superstar regardless. You're going to see him on Chunky Soup ads and Nike ads and all this stuff for years to come. I thought it was cool. Like you said, DJ Moore deserved that spot because he's kind of a quiet star in the league. I feel like he's almost underrated at this point. Every time somebody makes their top 10 wide receiver list, he's not on it. He should be on it. The guy puts up insane stats, despite the fact that he hasn't had a decent quarterback in his entire career. But it was cool to see his family get that moment. His little girl should get her own Disney show. She's just absolutely adorable and has so much personality. And, like you said, the cool things we're seeing, we didn't get enough of it, in my opinion, but seeing Rome versus Jalen Johnson, those kind of things where iron sharpens iron. You see how good football players become better. And, Roman Dunze is just like me. He walks into a grocery store and he smells candles, and then he goes and gets some snacks. Same, man.
I immediately knew that was a Woodman's, because I know what a Woodman's looks like on the inside. And they were like, this is open 24 hours. I was like, that's fucking Woodman's. And I don't know if you've ever had the pleasure, Ross, but Woodman's is outstanding, and you can get lost there, and they have fucking everything. It's a good time. But yeah, I agree with you. I think there's just always too much to cover, and it just kind of HBO picks those individuals and what they want. It felt like the cross between The Bear and Hard Knocks, where they just fight for the best B-roll of Chicago, which, obviously is great to see the shots of. But yeah, it really just, I saw that reposted so much the last 3 minutes, and that montage over the music was cool to see. And you got to focus on that leadership, and hopefully it is the right way. You mentioned it. If the Bears do fall short of 10 wins or 9 wins, something like that, if it's a losing season, then you really consider what you're going to do with Matt Eberflus. And you just changed up coordinators. You really hope that Caleb Williams' development and growth is in the right hands. And with the defense too, you can't get much worse than you did last year. And obviously Matt Eberflus takes a lot of that blame and any praise, because he's the one who's took it over the play calling for last year, and defensive-minded coach. So curious, very optimistic. We'll give predictions for the Titans at the end of the show, but we can both agree we're going to be real pumped to see the Bears take on the Titans on Sunday. Also ahead, what was the line? 3.5, and then the over/under at 44.5. It's a 12. It's a noon kickoff, of course, on the lakefront. Get pumped! But tonight, it's all about the Chiefs and the Ravens. The Ravens obviously coming up short against the Super Bowl champion Chiefs. Lamar Jackson saying, I don't have any friends. I don't have any quarterback friends in the league, especially not Patrick Mahomes, in so many words. I'm paraphrasing. But it's must-see TV to see these guys match up against each other. We know the Ravens were great last year. Lamar, maybe a little case of the yips and choking in the playoffs. It's tough against the world champion Chiefs. They're a very good team. Young receiver in Zay Flowers, and they had some injuries, and now they have added the King and Derrick Henry. Curious to see how his Ravens debut goes, but it's all about the Chiefs and the expectations this season. I feel like, as well as the road to the Super Bowl goes through them, or to win through the AFC. Everybody and their mom is saying Travis Kelce is like taking a step back and won't be a top 5 tight end. I'll believe it when I see it. He has shown that he is just, arguably the best of all time between him and Gronk and a few others out there. Excuse me. But, that's what we're looking forward to tonight. And then we'll see that Sao Paulo game, which is pretty wild. And that will take the Eagles and Packers to the international scale, which is pretty cool to see. But, I mean, it's a full slate. I think that there's some dud teams out there, teams in transition, Russell Wilson, and then in a new home with the Steelers, and then the Falcons with Kirk Cousins, Cardinals and Bills, Patriots, Bengals, Texans and Colts, Jaguars, Dolphins, Panthers and Saints. The NFC South could be bad again this year, as it usually is. Vikings and Giants. Talk about bad teams playing. It really just is these first 2 games, I feel like, as far as tonight and tomorrow. And then we get a Cowboys-Browns matchup. Commanders with Jaden Daniels has some potential, in the Buccaneers, who should be the best team in the NFC South. And then we'll see the Rams and Lions with these quarterbacks playing their old teams, which would be cool to see. And then the Jets, we finally get to see Aaron Rodgers, about a year removed from his debut and playing a snap, and then, tearing his Achilles, going up against the 49ers. And we haven't gotten a lot of talk about Aaron Rodgers, of course. This offseason, the talk has been, why have you skipped training camp, I should say. But curious to see how he has recovered. Talked a lot, Ross, but, you can start with tonight and the game in Sao Paulo and beyond. What are you looking forward to with week 1 in the NFL?
Yeah, well, hopefully we're looking forward to a game tonight starting on time. There's now a massive thunderstorm that's heading through Kansas City that might delay this football game. But Taylor Swift is in the house, so maybe she'll sing us a song in the meantime.
Use your magic, Taylor. Use your weather machine.
Yeah. I mean, the four primetime games are the 4 best games of the weekend. You talked about it. No, you get Ravens Chiefs tonight. Remember the Chiefs lost last year in opening night against the Lions, and also no team has ever had a three-peat before. So they're trying to start fast, but they're also trying to finish strong and end with three-peat. And the Ravens, it's kind of put up or shut up for them, because this nucleus has been together for a long time now. I don't really have anything to show for it. Remember, they lost last year to the Chiefs because they were just completely inept on offense, especially in the second half. But the other games, I like the game tomorrow night a lot. Eagles versus Packers. You start hearing about the travel situation and these teams, and they can't bring their families because it's Brazil and it's a little dangerous. And the Packers are staying 1.5 hours away from the stadium, so they're going to have a long commute to get to the stadium tomorrow, which is just insane. And then the other 2 primetime games, I love that Lions versus Rams matchup. I love it a lot. It's in Detroit, but I love Sean McVay in this spot. Matthew Stafford, remember the old switcheroo with quarterback, and I think the Rams could shock them on a weird opening night and win that football game. Right now, the Lions are favored by 4.5. And then you talked about it last year. We didn't even get to see Aaron Rodgers complete more than a couple snaps of a Monday Night Football game. Now he's got to go on the road back to where he's from, his old stomping grounds in Santa Clara, and face that 49ers team, which in my opinion is the best team in football. They have all their returning guys coming back. They signed Brandon Ayuk to a deal. They got Trent Williams back on a deal. Christian McCaffrey, he's got a banged up calf right now, but it sounds like he's going to play. To me, I don't think there's a team any better in the NFL right now than 49ers from top to bottom. But again, much like the Baltimore Ravens, it's put up or shut up time for Kyle Shanahan, because the bill is going to come sooner than later, and the bill is going to come mostly in the realm of Deebo Samuel, and the big one is Brock Purdy. And it's a big year for Brock Purdy. Is Brock Purdy going to get a couple $100 million off of being a Mr. Irrelevant quarterback, right? That's where it's going to be really enticing. But to me, the 49ers should be on a mission this year to go out there and just curb stomp teams, but also stay healthy en route to a Super Bowl, because the band could be breaking up a little bit at the end of this year. They're not going to be able to afford everybody. And also, at what point do you start saying, when is Kyle Shanahan going to actually win a Super Bowl? Choked as offensive coordinator against the Falcons, right? 28-3. We remember that. Has lost 2 Super Bowls now as head coach, where they had the lead late in both games. He, pressure's on him right now. He's an outstanding head coach. He's been very successful. Win a Super Bowl, Kyle. So that's what we're going to be watching for. Also, Tom Brady's first action as announcer. He gets Cowboys versus Browns. Super intriguing football game right there. 2 very good defenses, right? Myles Garrett versus Micah Parsons. 2 interesting quarterbacks. One has gotten paid, has been shit since he's gotten paid, and Deshaun Watson. The other guy's Dak Prescott. He hasn't gotten paid yet, but he's got a guy that's in CeeDee Lamb that did get paid. So that's going to be an interesting game too.
Yeah, no question. It's worth mentioning before you continue, Taylor Swift arrived at Arrowhead, of course, and she was looking scrumptious in a 2-piece denim thing with some high top boots. I know Ross isn't into that, but everything you talked about as far as, the 49ers, coming off another Super Bowl loss is so tough. And having the oldest roster in the NFL is one thing, but they did get the band together, signing Trent Williams, who deserved to get paid. So did Brandon Ayuk. Obviously they have just perhaps the most potent offense next to the Chiefs in the league. They're battle tested. You can say what you want about Brock Purdy, but the fact is he did get to the Super Bowl. He put up pretty consistent numbers and made those big throws where it counted and beat the teams he needed to get there. Just came up a little bit short, maybe because of coaching more so than his own play. It helps when you play against or play behind probably the best offensive line in the league. But, we talk at length about the Chiefs and the Niners. They know what they need to do to get back to the Super Bowl stage. It's what these other fringe teams need to do to overtake those 2 teams. And you're looking in the AFC at the likes of the Bills and the Dolphins and the Ravens, and the Texans really taking a leap this year, you hope, with CJ Stroud and company. In the division with AFC West with Kansas City Chiefs, I'm not sure that any of those teams can come close to them. The Jets, the AFC East could be really interesting with at least 2 of those teams making the playoffs. And then in the NFC, Detroit coming off NFC Championship berth. They want to continue to build on that success. Obviously, the hype in the NFC North as far as Green Bay and Jordan Love is concerned. He got paid in the offseason. He just has a great bevy of talented wide receivers to throw to. And now Josh Jacobs taking over at running back as well. And Matt LaFleur, who's one of the best young head coaches out there. It'll be interesting to see if Green Bay can fight out Detroit for maybe that seed out of the NFC North. The Eagles, I in my eyes, would probably be the team to overtake the 49ers. The way they, were set up before Saquon Barkley, and now moving offensive coordinators to change it up. NFC South will be kind of what the NFC East was for a long time and largely unwatchable. But I feel like the Falcons, we might see some signs of life, and there's a big if Kirk Cousins does work out and comes back from injury to his Minnesota days, where he put up just ungodly numbers and could make Drake London one of a top 5 receiver in the NFL. and they're finally, hopefully, going to use Bijan Robinson the way he should be used. It would make things interesting in the NFC for sure. But really, the Seahawks challenging the 49ers would be great to see. It just depends largely on Geno Smith and company. If you would pick any teams to overtake the Niners and the Chiefs, Ross, who do you like out there?
Yeah, I mean, you talked about it. I do like the Eagles a lot. I think they are the second most complete team. I worry a little bit about Nick Sirianni as a head coach and his dynamic with Jalen Hurts. But obviously, getting a guy like Saquon Barkley helps with those guys. And you also worry about what the loss of Jason Kelce is going to do, not only to the offensive line, but just to the football team as well. He was the heart and soul of that football team in that locker room. So it's going to be interesting to see how they are. Atlanta is a sleeper team. Certainly they have the talent there. I like Raheem Morris a lot as a head coach. I think he's going to bring a lot to that defense. They bring that Sean McVay offense with them. It's all up to if Kirk Cousins is healthy in his older years, coming off a torn Achilles. Remember, they drafted Michael Penix with a top 10 pick. They didn't even play him in the preseason. That's super odd to me. That either makes me feel like they don't feel good about Penix right now, or they're kind of saving him and putting them on ice because they might not feel great about Kirk Cousins lasting 17 games. But if he does, the talent is there. You talked about it. Drake London is on that football team. That's another first-round pick. Kyle Pitts is on that football team. That's another first-round pick. Bijan Robinson is another first-round pick on that football team.
Forget Darnell Mooney. Not a first-round pick.
Darnell Mooney, not a first-round pick.
Dog.
Yep. Tyler Algier is an awesome backup running back. And then they went out there, and remember, they a couple weeks ago, they got Matthew Judon on defense, and then they picked up Justin Simmons, the safety from, all-pro safety from the Broncos as well. So the talent is there for Atlanta. Can they put it all together? He's a first-year head coach, but he's actually been a head coach before, and he's won a Super Bowl as a defensive coordinator. So I think Raheem Morris has a little bit more veteran experience to hold this team together than most guys. And, the other sleeper team, you talked about them too. I think Seattle is a really interesting sleeper team. I think Mike McDonald is a really good head coach, really good hire. I think Pete Carroll, he was a great coach for a long time. He was a little older. It kind of ran its course there, but they got weapons. I think Geno Smith is good enough. I like their offensive line. I like their guys on the outside. DK Metcalf stopped eating candy all day, and he says he's in better shape. if that could be something.
No way.
And their defense is feisty. So they're going to be a really interesting team. Nobody's going to want to play the Seattle Seahawks this year. Unfortunately, the Bears do, because you're going to be in a dogfight in a phone booth with them all game long.
Yeah, talk about talented receivers out there. Obviously, DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett in the top 25 receivers, but they got Jackson Smith and Jigba waiting in the wings, and Kenneth Walker could be a top 10 running back easily. Curious to see how Geno Smith follows up last season, and he was great. And it'll be tough for the Bears to play those NFC West opponents for sure. They got to play the entire NFC West this year, as we well know. You got a Super Bowl prediction for me, Ross?
Ooh, I gotta go 49ers on the NFC. I think they did. I think they get back, and they're actually my team to win the Super Bowl as well. At some point, they have to get over the hump, and I pick them almost every year. And I think that the other team is going to come out of the AFC East, and I wanted to go shocker on people and go Buffalo Bills, because I think Josh Allen's going to go scorched earth this year. But I'm actually going to pick the Miami Dolphins, and I know I know they're not a team that plays great in inclement weather, but I just like their talent so much on both sides of the football. Mike, what's his name? Mike McDaniel is a Kyle Shanahan disciple, and it'd be really fun to see those two guys go head to head against the Super Bowl. So I'm going to go Dolphins, and I'm going to go 49ers.
I like the pick, and the AFC East is so intriguing to me. I think that they got the talent there, whether it be the Bills, the Dolphins, or maybe the Jets, because the talent around Aaron Rodgers is undeniable when you look at how complete these teams are. But I still give an edge to Kansas City, just just because the gods of football want them at least back in the Super Bowl. But I got them losing to the Eagles in the Super Bowl and denying that three-peat, because the three-peat for Kansas City would just be the worst.
Yeah, never happened before.
Never happened before, and I don't think it happens. I just don't think it does, at least for now. But curious to see how it all goes down, and we'll monitor that game tonight. But we're running out of show. As I saw on your feed today, Ross, I couldn't believe it, but not football related. But Rich Homie Quan passed away from a bad pill at 34. Rich Homie Quan, who of course had a lot of hits in the 2010s, and was in a rap supergroup with Young Thug, amongst other great things that he did. He did Save That Money with Lil Dicky, which was a great hit too. But 34 is just way too young, man. What a bummer.
It's way too young. I want people out there in the hip hop community and extend it out to just regular world. Get off these damn pills, man. Get off this nonsense. It's not worth it. He's such a talent. He actually that greatest rappers from Atlanta list came out a couple weeks ago. I think it was Billboard that dropped it. It was either like Billboard or Rolling Stone or one of those publications, and he was top 10, one of the top 10 greatest rappers of all time from Atlanta, and he's got the hits to back it up.
Sure.
And you look at it in contrast with a guy like Ludacris, who threw out the first pitch yesterday for the Braves, and Ludacris is also on that list. And there's a guy who is thriving, and he's aging gracefully like he's supposed to. And you saw him drinking glacier water for the first time, and that's what you want to see. I mean, I hate to put that kind of spin on things, but focus on your health, focus on your well-being, and allow yourselves to get older so we can hear the great songs that you made. He had great hits with Young Thug and stuff like that, where you're into your 40s and 50s and so on and so forth. So gone way too soon. Rest in peace to Rich Homie Quan.
Rest in peace, Rich Homie Quan. What a bummer. You got to take care of yourself, right? That's what it comes back to. I did say on the note of football, the final note I had before we get to our Bears-Titans predictions, I know Kylan Granson talked about wearing the concussion-resistant Guardian caps this season because now it's an option. And Roger Goodell already said that they have helmets that are like a Guardian cap and an NFL helmet together. But I don't believe much that Roger Goodell says. But he said, quote, "I want to be able to remember our first dance 30 years from now. I want to be able to remember my first kid's steps, no matter how dumb it looks. It's bigger than just looking cool. I'd rather look dumb than be dumb." It's important to remember that these are people, and they're entertaining us, but they're obviously playing a very violent game for our entertainment's sake on our couches on Sundays. So, to that end, I fully support them doing that. Whoever wants to wear those Guardian caps, and hopefully we don't see any ridiculous injuries in week one, like an Aaron Rodgers type or something to some superstar talent that would immediately just shift the league.
Yeah, completely agree with you. And I think at some point, I think more guys are going to wear that protective helmet situation. Sure. To be honest with you, when I see guys wearing it, especially like on screen and stuff like that, I can't even tell half the time that they're wearing it. So, but I think as time goes along, and we are further enough, to me, with technology, we should have things that evolve to where these things are slimmed down and look a little cooler, but nothing looks cool and compared to your life, your long-term health, things like that, right? I kind of equate it to I'm old enough where I was in the car in the 80s, and two things were happening in the 80s. Number one, we weren't putting kids in car seats. So you were just bouncing around in the back seat, right, without a car seat. And then number two, it was definitely not cool to wear a seatbelt. And now fast forward to today, and both those things, both are illegal, and you would be shamed, to do if you didn't do either. Same thing like drinking while driving, right? Like that's not cool anymore either. And we did that stuff all the time back in the day. So hopefully we can evolve the sport to where safety is more paramount over what looks cool. Yeah,
100%. Bears hosting the Titans Sunday. I got the Bears winning in a closer one, 20-17. What say you, Ross? They get their first win?
Very similar to you. I got them 24-20. Yes.
24-20. Bears get a dub. Caleb Williams throws for maybe a couple touchdowns. We see, and you said you like the tight ends for anytime touchdowns, perhaps Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett.
I like one of those tight ends for an anytime touchdown. I also don't sleep on a don't sleep on a Caleb Williams scramble for a touchdown as well. Remember, this guy's got some running ability, and that those linebackers for the Titans, not exactly fleet of foot. He could sneak in there and get himself a rushing touchdown as well.
All right, let's see the Bears get their first dub of the season. We're out of show. Thanks to everybody for watching, listening in on YouTube. And remember, if you missed any of this episode, it'll be up on YouTube after the show. We will post it, of course, on the audio-only platforms in Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasting shows, barroom content. Remember to like, subscribe, tell a friend or two. I'm at the Real Evan Mack. Ross is at Ross Reed, at Barroom Network for all the Bears breaking news and show news that we have upcoming. But for now, bear down. Everybody be good to each other out there. So long.
Peace.
Thank you.